Hello and welcome back. I'm Mike Damasti, and I'd like to present to you um, something else concerning practice. But first, I'll start with an invocation to Patanjali. If you listen to my previous three-part series, the first video has had this chant at the start. If you didn't, I'll reintroduce it. So it's non-religious for those that may be a bit skittish regarding religious matters. It's non-religious. It's just a way of honoring the teacher and the person that documented this yoga teaching, Patanjali. So honoring the sage, the Maharishi Patanjali, for giving us these teachings, and then honoring all the teachers that have gone on to teach yoga. So, if of course, if you're coming from Ashtanga Vinyasa, you're maybe not a stranger to chanting or opening chants. In fact, you'll recognize part of the chant. Otherwise, Iyengar folks will recognize a good part of the chant as well. In any case, I'll start, and this is the manner in which my teacher chants this invocation to Patanjali. Oh, maindu karattane ane muhattane dini lampere pondre etrane nandi mahandane jnana kurundane ponde vaitadi putru enrene yastyatva rupamadhyam prabhavati jagato nekadanugrahaya prakshina klesharashira vishama vishdaro nekavaktra subhogi sarvajnana prasutiribhushaka parikara pritaye yasya nityam Devo hisha savo vyacita vimalatanur yogado yoga yuktah yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarotam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi abahu purushakaram shankachakrasidharinam sahasrashirasham shvetam pranamami patanjalim Shrimate Anantaya Nagarajaya Namo Namaha Asmadacharyebhya Sarvebhyo Namo Namaha Om. So of course we also bow down to our Acharya. If you're coming from Krishnamacharya lineage tradition, of course we honor him for bringing us these wonderful teachings. As through his transmission and through his various pupils that have been disseminated aspects of his teachings. So today, as you can guess from the title, I'd like to look at Surya Namaskar, but not in a sort of historical way. Perhaps in the future I could make a video talking about the Vaidika chant mantras associated with the Surya Namaskar, and talking about the ancient tradition of prostration in general, and see how practitioners put it together in a certain way for Vyayama, and how Krishnamacharya kept the Vedic mantras intact in his understanding of Surya Namaskar, etc. But for today, we're just using Surya Namaskar as a vehicle. A vehicle for what? For basically, what's it called? To provide a means to compare and contrast with the various pupils that formulated the various branches, various schools, as deriving from these pupils of Shriti Krishnamacharya. So Surya Namaskar is a good place to start, because the last presentation I made in 3 parts was lecture based, and I spoke at great length about the cogent aspects of the practice of Vinyasa Krama, this traditional practice of Vinyasa Krama that my teacher Srivatsa Ramaswamy teaches, as he learned it from his teacher Shriti Krishnamacharya. But we didn't see any examples of how the practice is to flow, And of course, the all-encompassing sadhana doesn't end there, doesn't end with asanas, but it's asanas are quite a visible portion that we can point to objectively and say, okay, this is like that, the way this teacher conducts, or this teacher conducts in a different way, and we can see. Now, a little bit about my background. Prior to learning from Ramaswamy Sir, I did several years under Iyengar teachers, Iyengar yoga teachers, and I was quite a diligent practitioner in that line. But I also was interested in knowing about Iyengar's teacher, and so I learned through reading that there was a colleague of his, Pattabhi Jois, and Ashtanga Vinyasa that he propagated. So I did explore that in those years. So I am familiar to a certain extent with that. But then, of course, once I decided to go learn from Ramaswamy Sir, and then when I did learn from him and I realized what a gem this gentleman is, I haven't looked back. I mean, I do take the occasional Iyengar class with my teacher here in Montreal, or an Ashtanga class. Just recently I was traveling and I took an Ashtanga Mysore class in New Orleans. So, you know, I'm still exploring, just reacquainting myself with those approaches that I have been acquainted with in years prior, another lifetime, you might say. But in any case, so Surya Namaskar is so common nowadays that a lot of people know what we're talking about when we talk Surya Namaskar, sun salutation. So I thought this is a good way to look at, okay, this is the manner in which certain teachers conduct the movement and the breathing, and then to compare and contrast, discuss commonalities as well as dissimilarities with some of the other teachers in the lineage tradition, and of course paying particular attention to the traditional Vinyasa Krama that my teacher Ramaswamy Sir teaches, and how Surya Namaskar is conducted in this tradition. I assume that you're coming to these videos with an interest to know what is the deal with Ramaswamy Sir's teachings. So I assume that you're coming from one of the more popular schools, Iyengar Yoga or Ashtanga Vinyasa. So this video, hopefully we will look at some examples and just to give an idea. Maybe in the future I can upload an actual practice that I'll guide viewers through. But in any case, this video will just look at examples and see, and I'll discuss that. So first, I'd like to start with Ashtanga Vinyasa. So Pattabhi Jois was one of the well-known pupils of Krishnamacharyas in the late 1920s and into the 1930s. He was said to also have gone to learn from him subsequently, even into the 1940s. In any case, he started his own school, I think, by mid-1940s in any case, which is based on some lists of asanas that are depicted in one of Krishnamacharya's books called Yogasana Galu. And Pattabhi Jois then began presenting Ashtanga Vinyasa in terms of series. But I did also read that before he received great interest in people wanting to learn this whole system of all the asanas in a systematic way, apparently he was teaching people individually and more in a therapeutic sense, and tailor-making sequences for individuals. I'm not certain, but I did come across that Pattabhi Jois was doing that at some point before this massive interest in learning a systematic way of going through all the asanas. So let me share screen. I'll go to the video in question. The first video I'd like to share is perhaps a well-known video of, we're just going to watch an excerpt. It's Pattabhi Jois conducting the primary series, and it's with 6 pupils of his. I'll share with sound. Chuck Miller obviously is pictured here. There's even Maddie Ezrati, Eddie Stern, others. In any case, we're just going to take it up from one repetition of the Surya Namaskar A, the first variation, and just observe how it is conducted. Then we'll proceed from there.
Ekam inhale, dve exhale, त्रीणि inhale head up, चत्वारि jump back, पंच inhale, षट् exhale, breathe, look your navel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, सप्त jump inhale, अष्टौ exhale, नव inhale hands up, समस्थितिः, एकम inhale, द्वे exhale, त्रीणि inhale head up.
Anyways, so we just watched the first Surya Namaskar A, and of course, in Ashtanga Vinyasa they also have this Surya Namaskar B. So we'll go forward to that point. So starting here.
Second one, ekam inhale, dve exhale, त्रीणि inhale head up, चत्वारि jump back, पंच inhale, षट् exhale, सप्त right leg inhale hands up, अष्टौ exhale, नव inhale, दश exhale, एकादश left inhale hands up, द्वादश exhale, त्रयोदश inhale, चतुर्दश exhale. Again look your navel, 5 breathing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Panchadasha jump inhale, Shodasha exhale, Saptadasha inhale, hands up, Samastitihi. Ekam inhale.
Anyway, so you get the idea. It's a very beautiful practice. It flows very elegantly. It's a lovely practice to watch, and especially with such capable and adept practitioners. So now I also wanted to show how you get to the floor. First of all, we'll just skim through the last few standing postures before they proceed to the floor. So that's around 29 minutes. So actually 27 minutes, the last few standing postures. Okay. So just going fast forward just to show, so they go back to Utkatasana. Then Vinyasa to do Virabhadrasana, first one. Switch to the other side. Then they open up to the second variation. On the left first, this time, and then switching over to the right side. And now they'll go ahead with the sequence to come to the ground for Paschimottanasana.
5 Ekadasha up, straight. Dvadasha Chatvari, Trayodasha inhale, Chaturdasha exhale, Paschimottanasana Sapta jump through. 5 breathing. 1 straight back. 2, 3, 4, 5. Ashto inhale, exhale, take your toes. Head up, inhale, Nava, exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Dasha inhale, exhale, lock your hands, head up, inhale, Nama, exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Dasha inhale, exhale, Ekadasha up, inhale, Dvadasha Chatvari, Trayodasha inhale, Chaturdasha exhale, Purvattanasana Sapta jump through.
I'd like to include the counter pose too, because it's significant.
Purvattanasana Ashto inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nava, exhale, Dasha up, Ekadasha Chatvari, Dvadasha inhale, Trayodasha exhale, Ardha Baddha Padma Paschimottanasana.
Anyway, we'll stop there. I also wanted to include viewing Paschimottanasana because it's an important posture. It's a historical posture seen in medieval Hatha texts, and so to see how the teachers conduct even such a historic posture in these varied school lineages, as through the broad lineage tradition of Sri T. Krishnamacharya. So as you saw, maybe you saw my window, I was just doing a cursory count just to see how long is the breathing in this practice demonstration. But anyways, something else we could see here. I'll stop share. The next thing that I would want to show is one of Pattabhi Jois's pupils, and I'll show the video here, but I'll encourage you also all to check him out for yourself. David Swenson. So this is a primary series DVD, intermediate and advanced DVD, and then this is kind of a demonstration, not so much pedagogical, it's more demonstration of the advanced third series and fourth series in the original formulation of the sequences, whereas these first two DVDs are more instructional as such. But yeah, very good. I encourage you to if you haven't checked them out, don't resort to easy options of streaming or pirating. So do, if you want to, do look up David Swenson and check out his Ashtanga Vinyasa resources. So anyways, I'll pull that up in a second. Okay, so this is apparently from 1995. So what it says there. Anyway, I'll share screen with sound. So again, we'll watch some of those things and see maybe the difference in how a Western student is conducting the Ashtanga Vinyasa practice. So here we go.
And we're now ready. Surya Namaskara A. Inhale, both arms up with a full breath. Look up at your hands. Exhale, fold forward, lower your head. Inhale, look up. Exhale, take your feet back, lower, remember your options. Inhale, upward dog. Exhale, downward facing dog position. And full deep breathing. Remember, your feet should be about 6 inches apart. The entire palm pressing into the floor. We're going to stay here for 5 counts. That should already be about 2. Keep the spine long. Move the top of your head toward the floor. The heels move toward the floor, and your chest moves toward your feet. All right, that's 4. Strong breathing. And 5. Now as you inhale, take your feet forward, straighten your legs, and look up. Exhale, lower the head. Inhale, both arms up, full breath, the hands touch. Exhale, arms to your sides. And we'll continue right into the next one. Inhale, arms up.
So right off the bat, I'm sure you can notice it's quite a bit faster than the Ashtanga Vinyasa video with Pattabhi Jois leading the class. And but interesting enough, this DVD apparently goes up to an hour and a half for the complete practice, whereas the one with Pattabhi Jois, at least the excerpts we saw, they were conducted quite a bit slower than what David Swenson's doing here. But nevertheless, the complete practice is completed in an hour and 18 minutes, I think. So it's shorter for the overall practice, but those excerpts we saw were conducted a little slower. I think what Pattabhi Jois would do is that into the seated sequence in the primary series, he would move it along because there's vinyasas between each side. So maybe at that point, the vinyasa count gets a little faster. As you can tell, even some of the postures weren't equal in that sense. Like the count, the 5 count was quite a bit quicker for the counter pose, Purvottanasana. And also, a lot of the inhale-oriented positions in the sequence are given fewer counts than the exhale-oriented postures. There's sometimes only 3 counts by my watch, versus some of the others that were more like 4.5 seconds. And what I mean by second is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not a second. I mean 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 2, 4, 5 Mississippi, 6. Like that. It's got to be this pace. Right. I'm a musician, so I know what 60 beats per minute is. So it's not just counting as you like. It has to be 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. So, and for the stays in the asanas, predominantly, I noticed Pattabhi Jois counting probably 24, 25 seconds for a stay of 5 counts, 5 broad counts. Let's see how David Swenson conducts. So already the movement for the Surya Namaskar is quite fast, quite a bit faster. Let's look at Surya Namaskar B. Like Trini, the third movement, not as much time as the movement that preceded or followed that are exhale oriented. In any case, there's nothing wrong with unequal breathing in terms of extending the exhale. In fact, that's something that you see a lot of in Ramaswamy Sir's teaching. But it's just an interesting note because otherwise, in Pattabhi Jois's teachings, he would say it should be equal breathing, but he evidently wasn't teaching equal breathing. Also, the fact that this is in the context of a lead practice, of course, there's also such a thing as the Mysore self-practice rooms, where you go and the teacher just walks the room and observes the students doing their self-practice of one of the Ashtanga Vinyasa series as they are working on. And then as such, the teacher helps the students with where they're at. So that's a little different. My experience though, going to the Mysore rooms, people aren't going that much slower than a lead class. It may be different for like, obviously I'm not doing an extensive statistic on this, but just in my experience, I've noticed that people still move more or less at the pace of a lead class. And this is David Swenson doing it in 90 minutes, which is pretty standard, 90 minutes for an entire series. And I might remind you that an entire series is 70 plus asanas, so it's quite a robust practice, quite a number of asanas covered. So you do have to go through it at a certain pace in order to complete it within a reasonable framework of time, let's say 90 minutes. Anyways, nevertheless, there might be some other ways that you can prioritize one's practice with fewer asanas, but going slower. But this is what I'm getting at. Okay, so let's go ahead to Surya Namaskar B, David Swenson. So I'll just go ahead a bit. So now here, this is about where he starts, Surya Namaskar B.
We're now going to start Surya Namaskar B. Again, feet together, legs active. Bend your knees, inhale, look up at the hands. As you exhale, fold forward, lower the head, straighten the legs. Inhale, look up. Exhale, take your feet back, lower all the way to the floor. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog position. Big step with the right foot, back foot flat on the floor, arms up, and then exhale, fold forward, empty the lungs as you lower. Inhale, upward dog. Exhale, downward facing dog position. Big step with the left foot, both arms up over the head, full breathing, back leg active. Exhale, fold forward, empty the lungs, lower all the way to the floor. Inhale, upward facing dog position. Exhale, downward facing dog. Full breathing. Feet still about 6 inches apart. The body's heating up. You can now move further into the downward facing dog position. Keep lengthening the spine. Keep pressing both palms into the floor and moving the heels close to the floor now. That's already 3 breaths. Strong breathing. 4 and 5. Inhale, take both feet forward, straighten the legs, look up, lengthen the spine. Exhale, lower the head. Bend your knees. Inhale, arms up. Keep the knees bent until the hands
So there
touch.
he had the exhale,
Exhale,
pose even
arms to your
shorter than the
sides,
inhale pose.
legs
Incidentally.
straighten. And we continue.
So anyways, I'm not knocking it. I'm just objectively going through this, looking at it and making observations. It's a beautiful practice, like I said, very lovely. It has an elegant flow to it. So I'm not knocking it. I need to remind this because I don't want people like coming at me like, you're dissing my practice, my beloved Ashtanga Vinyasa practice. That's not what I'm doing. And we're going to look at some Iyengar videos of Surya Namaskar as well. So we're just going through these different examples. Before I go to Iyengar examples, I would like to look at Richard Freeman example. This is another pupil of Pattabhi Jois. Incidentally, he also learned from BKS Iyengar. So his approach can exhibit some influence from the Iyengar perspective. So let me just pull that up. Primary series. And before I show that to you, I'll also I encourage you to get these DVDs and support the guy. They're also excellent. So this is there's 3 DVDs. There's the introduction to Ashtanga, then there's the primary series, and then there's also the intermediate series video, which is more recent. Primary series one is older. You'll be able to tell by the image quality. It's a bit grainy in that regard. So let me just pull it up now. So here we are. We'll start with, again, Surya Namaskar A. Of course, we could have looked at David Swenson doing Paschimottanasana, but maybe we don't have to. We saw the other video where you see the sequence to come to Paschimottanasana. But anyways, let's look at Richard Freeman, Surya Namaskar A.
Again, with the inhale.
So here
turn the
he's
palms of the
instructing,
hands
so
out,
at least this first
and inhaling,
sun salutation, he's
we
going
reach
quite a
the
bit
sky,
slower to
looking
sort
to
of
the thumbs.
talk it through. That's
Exhaling,
it counts.
pull back the pubic bone. 2/3 of the way down, look to the nose. Inhaling, straighten the spine, look between the eyebrows. And now for an interesting movement. Bend the knees, and you can either hop back or step back to this position. Try lowering yourself so you're 2 to 4 inches from the floor. With the inhale, point the toes, lift the heart, look way, way back and up. Exhaling, pull back the pubic bone, roll over the toes, spread open the buttocks, and look up towards the navel. Exhaling, bend the knees, look at the floor between the hands, and either hop or walk forward. Place the feet together. Look up between the eyebrows. Exhaling, fold. Look to the nose. Inhaling, look up between the eyebrows. Reach for the sky. And then exhale back to Samastitihi. A footnote.
So, sorry, Richard, we won't listen to your footnote. So it's quite a bit slower. Of course, he's going through it in a more instructional way at this point. In regards to David Swenson's DVD, he goes through a more instructional portion even prior to the actual primary series, where at that point he's just keeping it going. Whereas here, Richard is trying to combine it. The whole video you could see is 2 hours in length. So at some points he's like here, he's breaking down certain things like the jump back, for example. Anyways, we'll go forward to the B variant of Surya Namaskar. That occurs at 1639.
Look to the thumbs. Exhale, Samastitihi. Surya Namaskara B, the second salutation to the sun. Inhaling, bend the knees, lift the arms, look to the thumbs. Exhale, up and over, like doing a swan dive, then look to the nose. Inhaling, straighten out the spine. Exhale, jump back. Inhaling, pull up the heart with straight legs. Exhaling, pull back, take the left heel in and the right foot forward. Inhaling, lift the arms and drop the back of the body. Exhaling, come back down. Inhaling, pull up the heart, press down the shoulders. Exhale, pull back, take the right heel in and the left foot forward. And then inhale, look to the thumbs. Exhaling, come down. Inhaling, pull up the heart. Exhaling, pull back for 5 rounds of Ujjayi Pranayama. So this is a breathing exercise. Stay with the breath. Smile softly to yourself to empty the palate. Keep the eyes steady. And keep the legs enthusiastic. So we're opening the buttocks totally into the sky without a reservation.
You can see by his
Exhaling,
instructions.
bend the knees. Inhaling, place the
more
feet
alignment.
together and look up between the eyebrows. Exhaling, fold, look to the nose. Bend the knees. Inhaling, lift the arms, look to the thumbs. Exhaling, come up like you're swimming into Samastitihi. Take a breath.
So anyways, it's a little faster than the first Surya Namaskar A, where he was trying to give more instruction for like the person first watching for first time. So it's a little faster, but still slower than the David Swenson video. It's hovering around the frequency, the tempo of the Pattabhi Jois video, maybe at times a little slower. In any case, let's proceed with the. We'll look at the Vinyasa to Paschimottanasana.
Hop back or step back. Lower yourself. Inhaling, pull in the coccyx. Exhaling, pull back. Stretch out both legs straight in front. Put the sides of the big toes together. Place the hands next to the buttocks. This is Dandasana, the staff pose. Lift up the heart, draw the chin down, and look softly to the tip of the nose. This is a meditative posture, a good opportunity to re-establish Mula Bandha and Uddiyana Bandha. Keep drawing the sitting bones back,
Keep pushing the inner edge of the foot forward with enthusiastic legs. Draw the pubic bone down towards the earth. Then,
So
Paschimottanasana.
that was
With
36
the inhale,
seconds Dandasana.
lift the arms, stretch up, look to the thumbs. Exhale, fold around the groins and take the big toe with the middle and index finger. Inhaling, lift up, look between the eyebrows, drop the shoulders, and exhaling, fold around the groins. Look to the tip of the nose and proceed breath by breath to tune the legs. If you're flexible and you can bring your belly all the way down into the legs, look up between the eyebrows. Keep pushing the inner edge of the foot forward, drawing the skin of the inner thighs down towards the floor.
Very
Roll the
Iyengar
shoulders back,
alignment cue.
away from the ears. Ground the sitting bones. Proceed breath by breath. And then, with the inhale, look up between the eyebrows, straighten the arms, open
That
the
was
heart.
34.
Exhaling, take the side of the foot, or reach forward beyond the foot, taking one hand with the other. Inhale, look up between the eyebrows. Exhaling, again, fold right around the groins. So from the hip joints, we're moving up and over. Listen to the sound of the breath. Follow the breath to their ends. The sitting bones constantly move back and down into the earth. The heel goes forward. The legs have a slight inward spin, which allows the hip joints to fold closed completely. Keep the heart open,
Very
the eyes
Iyengar.
steady. And then, with the inhale, look up between the eyebrows.
That was 33
straighten
seconds.
arms. Exhaling, place the fingers about 12 inches behind the hips.
Notice he
and
goes
lean
straight
back,
into
pulling the shoulders back.
Purvottanasana
Purvottanasana.
without doing the vinyasa between.
Inhale, lift up the heart, look back and up between the eyebrows, and stretch the big toes to the floor. Pull the front of the body up, move the back of the body down. Use the power of your tail. Take a deep breath in. Exhaling, sit down, cross
was
the legs.
18 seconds.
Inhaling, lift up, and exhaling, jump back. Inhaling, pull up the heart, release the belly. Exhale, pull back, bend the knees, and inhaling, we'll sit down again.
So now it is
Exhaling,
half lotus. The flow of the vinyasa here, it's a little faster at this point. He's doing 3 seconds a move, 3 seconds a position, basically. So 3 seconds an inhale, 3 seconds an exhale, which is similar to what we saw with Joyce. He was doing 3 seconds or 4 seconds. Trini or Pancha, a lot of times were only 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds, and giving a little more time, like a second or two longer on the exhale-oriented positions. But occasionally jumping forward in the Surya Namaskar, there was the inhale, look up phase of Uttanasana, which had more time than the exhale right after, and then straight away after, inhale, come all the way up. Not a lot of time on that exhale, which I would prefer to linger on myself. That's just a personal preference, especially after my experience with Swami Sir. So anyways, this gives you a little taste of Richard Freeman. Of course, going fast, there's also, people say it builds heat, and that could be something you're looking for. So moving a little quicker, or even the Surya Namaskar going quicker than what Richard Freeman shows here, again, to build heat. But let's look at, from the intermediate series video of Richard Freeman. So I'll share screen again. So here, let's see how fast he goes. This is more recent, obviously, you can tell.
Floating. Then Surya Namaskara A. Inhale, reach into Ekam, the first form. And exhale up and over into Dve, the second form. Inhaling, unroll the spine into Trini, third. And exhale to Chatwari, the fourth. Inhale, open the whole spine to the fifth, Pancha, and exhale to Shat, the sixth, for 5 breaths. Listening to the sound of the breath, we keep the roof of the mouth empty. We cultivate a scoop under the belly in the cave of the sacrum, keeping the shoulders wide, the hips wide, the roots of the toes wide, the roots of the fingers wide. And then at the tail of the exhale, bend the knees. Inhale into Sapta,
That was
the
26
seventh
seconds.
form. Exhale into Ashta, the eighth form. And then inhaling, reach into Nava, the ninth form. And exhale back into Samastitihi. Again, inhale.
So a little quicker than his primary series video, the earlier video. This is later on, years later. So this could be a number of reasons why he chose to go a little quicker for this one. In fact, this is 90 minutes for intermediate series, whereas his primary series video is in 2 hours. Also, for the fact that he is taking the time to give more instruction and pointers in the primary video. So maybe this is an assumption for the intermediate video that people don't need so much detailed instruction as if for the neophyte. Let's watch the Surya Namaskar B from this intermediate series video.
Keeping the heart open, the knees bend, and inhaling, look up to the thumbs. Exhaling, press over and look to nose. Inhale, turn on the pose, lifting kneecaps. Exhale, fourth position. Inhale, lengthen the lower back. Exhale, draw back. Turn the left heel in, bring the right foot forward, and then inhaling,
3 seconds, those
look to
movements.
thumbs. Exhaling, swim down. Inhaling, loop back the tops of the shoulders. Exhale, draw
3
back.
seconds.
The right heel turns in, left foot forward. Then inhaling, look up to thumbs. Swim down in the exhale. Inhaling, once again,
2.5
lengthen the
seconds.
core of the lower spine. Exhale, keep the
3
roots
seconds.
of the fingers down. Release the mouth of all tension. Make the eyes steady and roll the fronts of the armpits back and out. So the roots of the fingers take about 60% of the weight. The heels of the hand share about 40%. The roots of the toes spread and sink into the earth. The front of the leg is drawn up and back. The knees bend, end of out-breath. Inhaling, set the feet, lift the head, fold.
That was again 26
Exhaling.
seconds in this day.
Bend the knees, and inhaling, allow the center of the heart to float, and then swim along the central axis, listening to the sound of the breath. The heart stays open.
So anyways, I know it may seem negligible what differences a second here or two make. But I gotta say, if you try it, and we'll get to like the way Ramaswamy conducts the breathing. And again, I'm not trying to put something as inferior or superior. I'm just making objective observations here. And also from my own experience in Ashtanga Vinyasa classes, led classes certainly, and even practicing in the Mysore room, and yeah. evidently, if you go slow, it makes it a little more impossible to finish the series in a reasonable length of time. So this is the thing, you know, either you prioritize completing the entire series, or you focus rather on the breathing, making it longer. So you may have to subsequently practice fewer asanas, which is in fact the way Ramaswamy Sir teaches. There's certainly not as many asanas in a given practice as one would see in an Ashtanga Vinyasa series. So it's a different focus at that. Anyways, we'll proceed. This gives you some idea. Surya Namaskar as the foil to look at these distinctions, make observations. I'm always lagging behind in Ashtanga led classes, like I've gone to recently. I mean, once you go slow, like you can't really go back, or I mean, at least for me, I just felt that it was something really superb that I experienced. So that I sort of treasure that experience. Some people might have the opposite experience. Maybe they might learn from Ramaswamy Sir and think, oh, this is too slow, or maybe it's boring, you know. But I gotta say, don't knock it until you try it. It's really quite profound. Not to say that Ashtanga Vinyasa is something lesser than. I'm just making objective observations. And of course, I do have a bias, so I'll say that outright. The next thing, so now let's look at this PDF that I took the time to put together. So we were looking at this. These are excerpts from Pattabhi Jois's 1962 publication, Yogamala. Yogamala, which was only translated in English in the last 24 years. So like for the first close to 40 years of this text's existence were just available in Kannada language. It's Pattabhi Jois's mother tongue. So anyways, I'm not going to bother reading this. Of course, I'll stop share and show you the book again, because I like to encourage people to seek out these sources. So this is Pattabhi Jois's Yogamala, the translation. I think Eddie Stern worked on the translation. It's worthwhile getting, of course, because I don't want to encourage stealing. There's also the David Swenson practice manual, very excellent. It has a lot of information, even on the second series, whereas Yogamala it's talking about the primary series, doesn't get into the subsequent series, if you're interested in the subsequent series. So Yogamala, Pattabhi Jois. Now I'll go back to the screen share. So here's the photographs in the order. For Surya Namaskar A, and I'll bring your attention to a passage here. Very interesting. So as you can see from those examples, the teacher just gives the instruction. Of course, the students are Westerners, Occidental, but the teacher just gives the instructions for the even Pattabhi Jois himself in that excerpt. He's just giving the instruction for executing the movement with the correct breathing. Here, what does he speak about? There is a common perception that no medicine exists for mental illness. The Shrutis, however, so the Shrutis are the heard wisdom, Vedic sayings. They're mantras that were given to the Vedic rishis. They're thought to be the words of the divine, even. That's why they're heard, Shrutis. heard, revealed knowledge as such. So this text, like I said, it was only translated into English recently. It was intended for his fellow countrymen and women to read in the language of Kannada. So it's addressing that audience. So he's talking about now the Shrutis, and he's able to speak about it, assuming that the reader knows about it. So the Shrutis, however, say that through the Surya Namaskar, even mental illness can be cured. Now, if we reflect on the meaning of a mantra such as Hridrogam Mama Surya or Harimanam Chanashaya, so these are Vedic mantras for Surya. It's the Surya Namaskar mantras from the Vedas. In fact, I could tell you, assuming that this compilation is correct, it says that Surya Namaskar is found just a second. Would help to bookmark it, I guess. So Surya Namaskar is found, according to this, in the Taittiriya Brahmana. So that's Taittiriya Brahmana 7.3.6. So the full Vedic mantras is Ujjanadya Mitra Mahaha Arohanuttaram Divam Hridrogam Mama Surya Harimananchanashaya. So we saw two examples here, Hridrogam Mama Surya and then Harimananchanashaya. And then it goes on. Shukeshu me Harimanam Ropanaka Sudadhamasi Ato Haridraveshu me Harimana Nidadhamasi Udaga Dayamadityaha Vishvena Sahasasaha Vishantam Mama Randhayane Mo Aham Dvishato Radham. These are the Vedic mantras. Of course, there's the Bija mantras. Om Hram, Hrim, Hrum, Hraim, Hraum, Hraha. Those are the Bija mantras, the seed mantras. There's also Laukika mantras, which are referring the 12 names of the sun, deriving from the Puranas, I believe. So the 12 names of the sun. So that's Mitraya Namaha, so prostration to the 12 given names for the sun. Mitraya Namaha. Hang on, I'm trying to do it by memory. Ujjanadya Mitra Maha Mitraya Namaha Om Hrim Arohanuttaram Divam. This one is Ravaye Namaha. Then Hridrogam Mama Surya, of course it's Suryaya Namaha. And then Om Hrim Harimananchanashaya Bhanave Namaha. It goes on. There's 12 individual mantras. So here he's talking about the Surya Namaskar chant, but we didn't hear him chant this in his teaching of the Surya Namaskar, at least to these Western students. Most people don't experience the chanting in the Surya Namaskar as conducted in an Ashtanga Vinyasa class. It's terribly uncommon. Nevertheless, Pattabhi Jois does bring it up here in his Yoga Mala. So that's something I'll point out at this point, and we'll circle back when we get back to when I get to talking about the way Ramaswamy Sir teaches Surya Namaskar. So with these Vedic mantras, he says, we see that even mental illness and diseases born of prarabdha karma, the results of past actions that are bearing fruit in this lifetime, can be destroyed. Our ancestors certainly studied the mantras, understood their meanings, and put them into practice. As a result, they lived long lives of good health, great strength, and high intellect, and without ever succumbing to disease, death, or poverty. They attained divine knowledge, merged with bliss, and were forever content. Something that, of course, the atheists may have trouble with reconciling. Why practice Surya Namaskar if it's inherently devotional? Well, the atheist could appreciate the sun, the physical sun in the sky, for what it does bring to us. It's the closest star, the one that actually serves us. It nourishes us, allows life to exist for like the distance that we are from it, etc. So it is considered the benevolent friend in the sky. Mitraya Namaha is referring this friend, the sun as a friend, the celestial friend. And the mantras, the Vedic mantras, allude to this aspect of the sun. First of all, dispelling darkness. That's something we can objectively say. It dispels darkness. It brings in the day, and brings an end to the night. But also aspects of bringing health, and you could understand it. Perhaps it does nourish us, like vitamin D. It nourishes the food we eat, etc. So even an atheist can appreciate from that perspective. Otherwise, someone who is inclined to thinking along the lines of the divine and surrender to the divine, they can appreciate the sun as an outward manifestation of this divinity that is otherwise unfathomable to be spoken in words. So anyways, he goes on. It's very detailed what he's talking about here about Surya Namaskar. He puts a lot of focus there. You can see the Ashtanga Vinyasa practice verily starts with Surya Namaskar. So now, of course, the Vedic practice of prostration and using these Vedic mantras, chanting with prostration, these are ancient practices, and the basic act of prostration is also common across cultures, across geographical locations. It's a very human thing to prostrate. So the exact manner doing it like this, maybe we won't find the evidence for this, but the idea of coming to the floor and bowing down. I mean, you could even see it in Islam, the way prayer is conducted in Islam. There's verily this prostration. So anyways, it's common across cultures and across epochs. It's such a innate thing to do. So I'll proceed here. So here it's a little closer, the pictures, and it actually gives the instructions. So you can hear Pattabhi Jois counting in Sanskrit, and here it's indicated. First vinyasa, ekam. Ekam means one. So that's inhale, raise your arms. Dve is exhale, bend forward. And then Trini is the third. So it's inhale, look up. And then Chatwari is the fourth. That's jump back and you come to the stick posture, where you're resting on the four limbs, the four members of the body that are supporting the body that is straight like a rod or a stick. So that's Chaturanga Dandasana, the fourth position, Chatwari. And then the fifth, Pancha, is coming to the Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. And then Shat, the sixth, is Adho Mukha Svanasana. And from there, it's Sapta, jump forward and look forward. That's an inhale oriented. And then Ashto, eighth, is bend forward from there. Uttanasana proper. And then Nava is come up. And after that, you exhale and lower your arms. So 9 positions to complete Surya Namaskar A in the Ashtanga Vinyasa sequence, 9 vinyasas. It's very important in Ashtanga because it also highlights the method of getting to the floor and then performing the floor postures. And this is something that you'll see in even Krishnamacharya's early writing in 1934, his book, the Yoga Makaranda. It describes exactly that. It's an interesting thing. Krishnamacharya's Yoga Makaranda didn't actually speak about Surya Namaskar, but he describes the exact same method of coming from Samastiti, coming to the floor to perform any number of these floor asanas, and then in order to then come back up to Samastiti after completing the posture in question. But before we get to that, let's look at, again, the Surya Namaskar. And also talking about the second Surya Namaskar, the Surya Namaskar B. So of course, this one incorporates the Utkatasana and then also the Virabhadrasana. Different teachers will give different alignment for this. But then here's the method of coming to the floor with these same photos of Surya Namaskar up to the 6th position, Shat, and then Sapta is jumped through to sit. Afterward, Ashto is the holding of the toes, and then this is Sharat, the grandson of Pattabhi Jois. And then Nava, the 9th position, is the state of the asana. You can see the 9th Nava. After which we have Dasha, which is 10, look forward, and then Eka Dasha, 11, is basically the same as Chatwari, the 4th position. Eka Dasha, then Dvadasha, 12th position, is the Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. And then Trayodasha, the 13th position, is Adho Mukha Svanasana. And then Chaturdasha, the 14th, is inhale, look forward in Uttanasana. And Panchadasha, 15, is bending forward in Uttanasana proper. So then 16th is, that's Shodasha. This is inhale, come all the way up. And then exhale, Samastiti. So you can see 16 vinyasas in this one. 16 vinyasas. If we go back here, how many vinyasas? Ekam, inhale. Dve, exhale. Trini, inhale. Chatwari, exhale. Pancha, inhale. Shat, exhale. Sapta, inhale. Ashto, exhale. Ashto, same as Chatwari, here it's the 8th. Nava, inhale. Dasha, exhale. Now second side. Eka Dasha, inhale. And then Dvadasha, exhale. Trayodasha, this is inhale, and then we have Chaturdasha, exhale. Then you stay there for a number of breaths. And then Panchadasha, inhale, so that's jump forward, look forward. And then Shatdasha, exhale. Then Saptadasha, inhale with bent knees, come up, Utkatasana, and then exhale, Samastiti. So as you can see, it's 17 vinyasas. So what you could see here is that the sequence of Surya Namaskar A is utilized in order to get to the ground after the 6th position, Adho Mukha Svanasana. One jumps forward to sit. So it's a means for getting to the floor. It's a progressive means to getting to the floor in order to get to this state of the asana. And then after you come out and you exit and incidentally come back up to Samastiti. And the counter pose is given here. Here there's an excerpt from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika talking about how this posture is very, very important, the Paschimottanasana. So in Hatha Pradipika, of course, it doesn't explicitly describe this kind of means for coming to the ground. But this is what Krishnamacharya gave in Yoga Makaranda. And he was coming from a tradition of dynamic practice with rigorous procedures. It's called Vinyasa Krama in that there's a progression to something and then there's a subsequent sequence going away from that. So the idea of progressing to in steps. And it's has something to do with Surya Namaskar. I mean, you can see it's here. Like going back to Krishnamacharya's Yoga Makaranda, he doesn't talk about Surya Namaskar, but he does mention Samantraka practice. Or for those that aren't familiar with Vedic chanting or aren't initiated into Vedic chanting, they can practice amantraka without mantras. But he does say those who are initiated into chanting the Vedas can practice asanas and pranayama, postures and the breathing techniques, with mantra, samantraka. So as I was saying, Surya Namaskar inherently can have the mantras integrated into them. And you could even integrate a full prostration. You could see here, the closest we get is the Chaturanga Dandasana, the stick pose, these staff type poses. But there's such a thing as the full prostration. What is the full prostration? There's two ways of doing it. We'll get to it later, but I'll just show momentarily here. So I'll stop share and go back to one of these videos. I have to reopen it. 1 second. So I'll just pull it up real quick. One second. Okay. Share screen with sound. This is a French language documentary. Am I sharing the correct screen? Let me do it again. Okay. So I'll go forward to a point where you see both TKV Deshikachar and his colleague A.G. Mohan prostrating in front of here a very elderly Sri T. Krishnamacharya. This is a very nice documentary, in fact.
Célèbre. Rama, en frappant un ennemi dans le dos, a-t-il bien fait de faire le mal pour la bonne cause? Quoi qu'il en soit, conclut allègrement le professeur, Ayogya, qui suis-je pour discuter de ces choses?
So here, Deshikachar to the right and A.G. Mohan to the left, they're prostrating before the professor.
Au commencement d'un cours, selon un schéma immuable, l'élève salue son maître,
I believe
et
that's
s'il se bouche les oreilles,
Digimohan.
c'est qu'il est en train de
Because
prononcer
afterward you
son
do
propre
see.
nom. Or, dire égale entendre, et entendre
So
son
they're
propre
performing this prostration rather quickly, but you can see them getting completely prone, prostrate, and stretching the hands forward with the hands in Namaskar. So that's not something you see in the Surya Namaskar as Patabi Joyce is teaching here in those other videos. Nevertheless, it's the traditional way of prostrating. You see people do this at temples. They're not necessarily doing this exact sequence to come to the floor. And you can see the way Deshgachar and Mohan are doing it in the video. They're just coming down in a simple fashion. And in the same prayer in Islam, it's not coming down to the ground in such an elaborate fashion. But anyways, there's also like the reason why you could see an elaborate fashion is what is one's intention in the practice. So there's a vyayama element where there's a certain rigorous nature to provide physical benefit. So even the sequence to come to the counterpose, Purvattanasana. Incidentally, it was interesting to note that Richard Freeman did not do the vinyasa out of Paschimottanasana. He went straight to Purvattanasana. Otherwise, the way it's instructed in Yogamala is with its own designated vinyasa from Samastiti. Of course, nowadays in Ashtanga Vinyasa, there is the half vinyasa instead of coming all the way back up to Samastiti and then going from there back down to the ground, utilizing merely a half vinyasa. And there's been interviews where Patabi Joyce talks about it. For people that are too busy to do an entire full vinyasa back to Samastiti, you can do half vinyasa. And predominantly that's what he ended up teaching. And indeed, like he was saying, if you do full vinyasa, it takes more time. And he's saying for householders, for people that need to go to work, they don't need to practice for 5 hours a day, you know. And incidentally, that's one of the difficult things about conducting practice with a longer breathing. It'll take you longer to get through all the asanas, so it starts to become less doable for householders, people have to get to work. So again, prioritizing either the sequence, so you go through it at a more rapid pace, or prioritizing longer breathing and just selecting fewer asanas to practice in a given day's practice. Anyways, so now let's take a look at Krishnamacharya's Yogamakaranda. So I'll just skip ahead. It's all the way at the end here. So here is Krishnamacharya's Yogamakaranda from 1934. So it's like I said, he doesn't go through Surya Namaskar, though he does mention the possibility of practicing Samantraka or Amantraka. And of course, the understanding that one would be learning from a teacher. So he's not giving mantras to practice in a book. He's always indicating the need for the teacher in any case. Otherwise, there's the method to come to the floor, which looks a lot like this, the Surya Namaskar that you saw in Ashtanga Vinyasa in any case. So, Samastiti. The phase where we raise the arms is not shown, but it's inferred. You're exhaling to come to the pose, but what came before was an inhale, incidentally. So the Uttanasana, then the Chaturanga Dandasana. So here for each of these, he's saying you could stay for a length of time in each of these, breathing in the posture, even holding the breath. So that's something I'll indicate when I go back to the Ashtanga Vinyasa indication. It says you're not to hold the breath in the asanas or in Surya Namaskar. But then Krishnamacharya is indicating kumbhakas or breath retentions. And he's also indicating for some people it may be more beneficial to hold after exhale rather than after inhale. And for others, perhaps they would benefit from inhale retention, or it's appropriate for them. So he gives this distinction. This is not found in Ashtanga Vinyasa teachings, nor is it really seen in Iyengar teachings for that matter. But nevertheless, this is found in Krishnamacharya's 1934 work. So it was not something new when Deshikachar or Ramaswamy Sir were teaching these aspects, holding of the breath in the asana practice itself. So kumbhakas is indicated, and even staying for a while in Chaturanga Dandasana, like for in its own regard. Otherwise, when he's instructing as a sequence to come to the ground, it's assumed you can do it in the same manner as Pattabhi Jois conducts. But how fast? That's the question, right? So this is what I'm getting at. You could see that he's alluding to moving slowly, but you see this more so highlighted in any case in the presentations of Deshikachar and A.G. Mohan, Srivatsa Ramaswamy, and T.K. Sribashyam, Trishubha Mohan Kumar. In any case, make the effort to practice until it becomes possible to remain in this posture for 15 minutes even. So at this point, he's just practicing, he's indicating to practice that one posture for its own sake. Probably in a similar fashion that Iyengar would teach some of these postures, because in Iyengar yoga, there is instances where they do teach a dynamic approach or even Surya Namaskar sequence, but most of the time in Iyengar classes is static holding of the postures, such as Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, any of the postures, staying in them for a period of time. So in Ashtanga Vinyasa, one stays in Urdhva Mukha Svanasana just for the breath, whereas it is possible one can stay in it, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing it as a means to get to the floor, then you might not be staying in it all that long, maybe just for the given breath and then getting to the floor. In any case, each posture is given its own benefits and its own process. And then getting to the floor, Dandasana, in order to then practice Paschimottanasana. So, and this is the sequence indicated in drawings. It looks similar to what I showed in the pictures put together of Pattabhi Jois and his grandson Sharat. Otherwise, again, let's go back to the Yogamala. So here, aspirants should know this method, which is best learned from a guru. So even Pattabhi Jois is indicating the need of a teacher to learn this stuff. They should also note that kumbhaka or breath retention does not occur either in the Surya Namaskar or the asanas. So here, like I said, he's indicating no breath retention, no kumbhaka, but Krishnamacharya is indicating kumbhaka. So it's kumbhaka certainly not for everyone, I will say that. And Krishnamacharya was a master of adapting teachings according to the needs, the capacity, the constitution of the individual in front of him. So certainly kumbhaka may be inappropriate for certain individuals. And my teacher, Ramaswamy Sir, would always remind practice must be appropriate to the individual. So you're always considering that. That's something to be said about the fact that Ashtanga Vinyasa is a set sequence that can be somewhat modified, but broadly speaking, it's a set sequence. Whereas what Krishnamacharya was doing, he wasn't teaching Ashtanga Vinyasa to his one-on-one students. He was tailor-making sequences for that particular individual. And again, he wasn't teaching people to practice 70 asanas in a day's practice. That's kind of like a marathon in a way. Some people take to it, and others, maybe they don't have as much time to devote to so many asanas, or they want to prioritize the long breathing, like I'm saying. In any case. So here saying no kumbhaka, whereas Krishnamacharya says there's kumbhakas possible. Those who practice the Surya Namaskar in accordance with the scriptural rules must never forget to be mindful of the Drishtibandhana. So yeah, the Trishtana method. After finishing sun salutations, worship and other religious activities should be performed while sitting in Padmasana. So anyways, he's indicating puja, like prayer and meditation as such. So it's a bit of a misnomer when Western academics peg Krishnamacharya out to be someone who is just concerned with asanas and physical exercise, because that's far from the truth. And even Pattabhi Jois in his own writing, he's saying that all of this is a means to then get to prayer and meditation to a certain extent, you know. And that's certainly the case for Krishnamacharya. He was a very highly devout individual, orthodox man, and it was sort of outside of his scope as a yoga acharya at the Mysore Palace to be getting into such matters like how do you conduct the morning prayers and whatnot, because he's assuming his students were learning as according to their family tradition anyway, so it's sort of outside of his business in any case. Anyways, for those who practice asanas, the Surya Namaskar must be performed first and then followed by the asanas. This is the rule. He's making it out to be a rule here. Those who follow this rule will receive whatever they desire. With this, the topic of the Surya Namaskar comes to a close. But in any case, it's interesting that Krishnamacharya's Yoga Makaranda actually didn't show Surya Namaskar. He showed this means to get to the floor, but not explicitly just a Surya Namaskar sequence where you just do the dog poses and don't necessarily come to the floor at all. You just then come back forward to stand in any case. Not in that book anyways. So, and in fact, Ramaswamy Sir says that they were not doing Surya Namaskar every day, but they did chant at least once a week on Sundays, I think. They would chant significant portions of the Yajur Veda, the Krishna Yajur Veda, which are in honoring the sun, not necessarily with doing such prostration, but just the Vedic chanting. He would get together with his teacher on Sundays and chant for an hour or so this portion from the Krishna Yajur Veda, honoring the sun. So anyways, the means for performing Paschimottanasana and then Purvottanasana, the counter pose. Aspirants should note that immediately following the performance of an asana involving bending the body forward, one that is opposite, that is one that bends the body backward, is to be done. Similarly, asanas in which the body bends backward should immediately be followed by ones bending the body forward. From this, any pain in the waist resulting, for example, from Paschimottanasana will disappear. So he's indicating the need for counterpose, and here Purvottanasana is the classic counterpose for Paschimottanasana. Paschima, the posterior stretch, Paschimattana. Purvattana, so this is the anterior stretch. This is the opposite, the counterpose. So now, a note about this. So each asana is indicated with its own designated vinyasa krama to come to the floor. Now, an early student of Pattabhi Jois's from the early 1970s, Nancy Gilgoff, who was learning from Pattabhi Jois along with David Williams, she indicates how practice was different than how it's typically presented today. And also note that Richard Freeman, he skipped doing the vinyasa after Paschimottanasana and necessarily before coming to Purvottanasana. He went straight to Purvottanasana. And this is similar to what Nancy Gilgoff is suggesting here. In the seated postures, there were a minimal number of vinyasas. There were no vinyasas between sides. Moreover, there were no vinyasas between variations. So all of Janu Shirshasana A, B, and C were done together. Right side, left side, A, right, left, B, right, left, C. Then vinyasa before Marichasana, then all of the Marichasana variations in one group were done together without vinyasas between sides or variations. So that's different than how Ashtanga Vinyasa is typically conducted today. And of course, this may have been unique or individual to Nancy's constitution. Again, because not everyone needs to do vinyasas to get a lot of heat built up. Some people might be feeling depleted from doing this, you know. Of course, so some people would like to get more sweat, produce more sweat. So doing more vinyasa, building the heat, yeah, there's that element. But if someone is feeling depleted as a result, perhaps it's not appropriate to such an individual. You have to consider the constitution, and Ayurveda speaks to this also. So like if you have a high pitta dosha, this is already inherently in terms of fast metabolism, the fire in the metabolism, the metabolic process. So it could be too overwhelming, you know. So anyways, and we'll circle back to this again when we talk about Ramaswamy Sir, how he conducts this type of vinyasa krama to come to the ground, instead of explicitly encircling or bookending each and every single asana, rather compiling or grouping a similar set of asanas together as such, with the bookending from Samastiti, which is again different than the half vinyasa, which doesn't benefit from that full expression of coming to Samastiti and then resetting in your mind. Again, if you're not doing it between every single asana, then maybe it might not be so bad to actually do come up to Samastiti when you do the vinyasa, and then come from Samastiti to come back down to the floor. And other such examples where asanas were rather linked rather than having necessarily a dynamic vinyasa between them. Even in the intermediate series, she talks about that. Fewer vinyasas back then. No vinyasa between sides in Kramchasana or Bharadvajasana, Ardha Matsyendrasana, or the Ekapadashirshasana sequence. From Shalabhasana through to Parsvadanyarasana, all of those prone postures, no vinyasa in between. They were treated as a single group. So that's very similar to what we'll see later with the Ramaswamy's presentations, where he treats an entire group of such postures, bookending them in that sense with the Samastiti before and after, but not necessarily the vinyasa between every single asana. It doesn't have to be so explicit, like it is indicated in Yogamala, or even in Krishnamacharya's 1934 Yoga Makaranda. So can be adapted as such. And Ustrasana, Kapotasana, they're both done on the knees, so they're treated as a group as well. Anyways, it's a very interesting article in any case, if you have the chance to read it. Now, a note about this long breathing or short breathing. Maybe someone doesn't have the patience for practicing a long breath, and they have the intention to practice the full series, and in order to do so in a reasonable amount of time, you have to sort of go at a certain pace, a particular pace. But let's look at what Pattabhi Jois said, because he has said on occasion, practice with 10-second inhalation, 10-second exhale. or 15-second inhalation, 15-second exhalation. So that's actually quite a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, to like inhale that long, and that's spirit actually to do with Ramaswamy or Sri Shuan. They're teaching this long breathing, slow movement. So that's particular. But it's just funny because when you see Pattabhi Jois's lead classes, he's not allowing for that slow pace. And again, because he's teaching this full series, so he can't expect people to practice for 3 hours to get through an entire series of 70 asanas. At that point, there was a certain decision made that he's teaching it as a set practice. One goes through the entire thing. And like I said, some people really take to that. But a choice is made. So this is from a particular site. It's Ashtanga Yoga, I think in Switzerland, in fact. This person had the opportunity to learn from my teacher as well, Srivatsa Ramaswamy. And I think like you that are watching this video and sitting through it, it does behoove the Ashtanga Vinyasa practitioner to do some of this study and learn something about Krishnamacharya's own teachings. I think it's unfortunate for persons to just stop there at Ashtanga Vinyasa and not go deeper and see, well, what did Pattabhi Jois's own teacher teach? You know what I mean? And Krishnamacharya's own teachings. Read Yoga Makaranda, see what it says, and you can see there's definitely indication for the same sequence to get to Paschimottanasana. It's nearly identical in wording and everything, and the number of vinyasas. It's all very much the same, but there's all this other nuance that's not there in Ashtanga Vinyasa. So this person is actually saying, look, Pattabhi Jois would say, take 8-second inhale, 8-second exhale, 15-second inhale, 15-second exhale to even extend the breathing to that extent. And he's even drawing attention that for as much as Pattabhi Jois was emphasizing equal breathing samavritti, he wasn't equal. If you count, some like Trini is often shorter than, like, the third position in the sequence is often shorter length, shorter duration than Chatwari or Dve that preceded it, etc. And then he gives a rationale why lengthen the breath at all? Why is that such a significant thing? Again, don't knock it unless you try it. It may seem boring. It may seem like you're watching paint dry. I know Ashtanga Vinyasa is very beautiful. You watch it, it's very elegant. And slower breathing, slower moving may seem like, well, what's going on, and may resemble paint drying. But again, it's quite a powerful practice if you do have the patience to try it out and give it a chance. So what happens when you feel shortness of breath? He's talking about parasympathetic nervous system, having to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's through long breathing, particularly exhalation, lengthening exhale even longer than the inhale. So allowing for unequal breathing at times, Vishamavritti, and certain movements naturally allow for longer exhalation at that. And also never allowing the exhale to be shorter than the inhale, because that's sympathetic, stimulating, like energizing, and not always a good thing. And there were instances where jump forward, inhale, and then exhale quickly, and then inhale right away up. We saw that in Pattabhi Jois's Surya Namaskar there. But if you at least try to make the exhale as long as the inhale was, it'll be more calming, instead of, okay, just quickly expel the air and then inhale longer to come up, Depends what your intention is, and again, that might not be appropriate to all of individuals. I would certainly favor an exhale at least equal to the inhale myself, if not longer, in certain opportune moments. So then, yeah, he's talking about all of these kinds of benefits that can be seen scientifically, physiologically, psychologically. And he also brings up these examples. However beautifully we carry out our asana, however flexible our body may be, if we do not achieve the integration of body, breath, and mind, we can hardly claim that what we are doing is yoga. What is yoga after all? So there's this rationale, certainly. What's the point of all the gymnastics? And I mean, Pattabhi Jois was saying that too. He was saying, don't give in to the circus stuff. Like, really get into the practice. It's supposed to be a yoga practice. Look at this. Mark Darby is quoting Pattabhi Jois. So breath and yoga are the most important thing. Without breathing, it is not yoga. Pattabhi Jois said, no breathing, it's only circus. If you want to be doing yoga, make sure you place the most emphasis on the breath, evenness of breath. So, I mean, I'm not saying, and again, I'm not judging Ashtanga people. Like, don't come at me. I'm just saying, like, and I'm not saying that you're not paying attention to the breathing. It's certainly not mindless. Look at that beautiful practice of we saw the video of Pattabhi Jois conducting. It wasn't fast, mindless practice. It was quite beautiful, flowing, driven by the breath. Just that the pace was at a particular pace, What if you try it longer? See what that does, Be curious. See if are you attached to getting through your entire series? I got to do my practice. Or are you open to exploring, Why are you attached to doing the full series? Your practice is not complete unless you've done the entire series. Like, why ask these? I'm just asking you to ask these questions, Krishnamacharya was not teaching that way for most other contexts, this is an interesting one too. Like, again, Pattabhi Jois alluding to long breathing, even though he didn't conduct his lead classes that way, which is then unfortunate, because then people get the impression that when they do Mysore self-practice, they're not deviating all that much in pace from what they otherwise would experience in a lead class. Maybe take an extra breath here or there, but everybody's still working at a particular pace. I'm the only slowpoke in the Mysore room, let alone the lead classes. Otherwise, you could see this. Like, what is Pattabhi Jois saying here? Inhalation, exhalation, one type of time, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 15 seconds. Inhalation, 10 seconds, exhalation, 10 seconds. Inhalation, 15 seconds, exhalation, also 15 seconds. Same method you follow. So, like, that's quite a long duration if you actually count like proper 60 beats per minute, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. Not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's not a second. Like, actually counting seconds proper. And this is a notable quote from TKV Deshikachar in regard to progression in practice. Conscious breathing is one of the greatest tools to influence the effect of the postures without changing the posture. So the first thing to realize is to let your body flow with the breath, not let your body control the breath. So really allow the breath to be the driving force. Of course, you're moving with the breath in Ashtanga Vinyasa. I'm not saying otherwise. But really make the breath central to the point where you make it long, you regulate the breathing, so the movement is forced to become slower. I don't know, it's just something. I mean, I'm assuming you're here because you're curious to know about Vinyasa Krama. So that's why I'm just talking about it in this way. Another example here from Love Yoga Anatomy. Again, he's talking about parasympathetic nervous system, the importance of that, and he's saying how there's, of course, the Sharat's audio CD of primary series. It's quite fast. Each pose, not including entry and exit, takes about 20 seconds. So yeah, 20 seconds is even shorter than what Pattabhi Jois allowed for. He was allowing for 24, 25 seconds in the actual stay of an asana. Here it's indicated Pattabhi Jois or Sharat is only allowing for 20 seconds. Now, is someone actually breathing 5 breaths in the span of 20 seconds for the count of 5, or they're allowed to breathe longer, even if it means they'll only take 2 or 3 breaths in the span of 20 seconds? You know what I mean? So there's even that. There's this count of 5, but maybe to a certain extent it's an arbitrary count. In the self-practice room, are you going to breathe 5 times if you're breathing long? Or maybe you could take fewer breaths if you're breathing quite long. Take 3 long inhalations and exhalations. Maybe that will be sufficient. It might take you to 30, 35 seconds, if your breath is a minimum 5-second inhale and minimum 5-second exhale, if not allowing exhale to be longer at times, So that's where you can see that the time gets stretched, expanded in that sense. Or here, again, Pattabhi Jois alluding to 10-second inhale, 10-second exhale, or 15-second inhale, 15-second exhale. Like, he's giving large numbers, which is interesting. And this is an interesting one. So this is an interview from 1991. So he's praising the importance of vinyasa, practicing with vinyasa. So many would assume that means, okay, I necessarily have to do these weight-bearing postures. But I think it has more to do with the breathing. This is made clear when you look at quotes from Krishnamacharya. So like here, every asana you take one by one. This is good method. This is real method. You don't do asana without vinyasa. You don't asana. Why? Without vinyasa, you don't do asana. Why? One part of the body you bending, you can understand. For example, Paschimottanasana, Ardha Baddha Padma Paschimottanasana. You're doing one leg, bend one leg, and take back your foot. How long? Long time. After a little restricted blood circulation, every joint stopping. After, again, take up, jump back again. Next posture, next leg you put. After you're jumping, time, tight your body, your whole body. Don't lose tight. For vinyasa, the body should be engaged, not relaxed. Okay, so after he's talking about blood circulation automatically is moving. So he's saying circulation is improved through doing vinyasa. Motion is lotion, and he's saying pain quickly is going away. So without vinyasa, you do every pose. Without vinyasa, all the joints so blood circulation not correctly. And then he's saying, oh, well, then people are saying yoga is giving me pain. But he's saying, well, if you do it correctly with the correct breathing, hence vinyasa, then that likely wouldn't be the case, that they will be able to overcome pain, And that's, so look at this quote from a Q&A with the professor himself. The question is, should the asana practice be done fast? And why not? Is already assuming that he's going to answer, no, shouldn't be fast. So he says, fast movements will distort both the blood circulation. Again, this discussion around blood circulation, the Sanskrit would be Rakta Sanchara. So fast movements will distort both the blood circulation and the respiration. This results in crookedness of the body and injury to the different parts of the body. Slow practice of asanas with proper respiration will not only remove the defects in the body, but result in chitta ekagrata, one pointed mind. However, I must insist that this practice should be done from the direct instruction of a teacher. Of course, this is important. So this is another angle of this whole discussion. Don't do asana without vinyasa. At this point, it sounds like Krishnamacharya is actually saying, really, it's about the breathing that's important. He's not saying you have to do it weight-bearing vinyasas, jump back, jump through. He's saying, do it slowly with the correct breathing, the proper respiration. And he's saying it leads to the same benefits that Pattabhi Jois is talking about, blood circulation. Then there's all the stiffness is going away and all the stuff. So it's something interesting to consider. And again, there's a lot of people doing Ashtanga Vinyasa in the same manner as you saw in that lead class, and doing very well, doing for many years. So that's great, you know. Some people, it works, it just works. But there's something compelling for me to hear the professor talking in this way. I cannot assume I know better than the professor. This is the professor of Pattabhi Jois. I know some people really like the Ashtanga Vinyasa practice, so anything that seems to question it, they might jump to the defensive. I'm not trying to come at you, so don't come at me with this. I'm just saying, this is interesting. Look what the professor said. And to me, it's quite compelling to consider what the professor said. Do you listen to the student more than the professor? You know, and then I'm like, look what Pattabhi Jois said. He's saying 10-second inhale, 10-second exhale, 15-second inhale, 15 like, so he's alluding to long breathing, but then it's more like do as I say, not as I do when you consider the lead classes. So it's an interesting dichotomy, because otherwise, like, let me show you something, just an excerpt from Breath of the Gods documentary. So let me share screen with audio.
Hands up, straight. Inhale, exhale, exhale. Touch your nose, touch your nose. Now we head up only, Chatwari, jump back. Pancha, inhale, shak, exhale. Now breathe, 5 breathing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jump. Ashtav, again touch. Now our hands up. Samastri, leave it. We're starting with sound. Yes, that's correct. It sound means nose and throat, both including breath. After the sound is coming.
So that was about 2 seconds inhale, 2 seconds exhale, what he demonstrated in the breathing with the Ujjayi rubbing sensation.
Chatwari, jump back. Pancha, inhale. Shak, exhale. Right side, right leg put there. Sapta. Right leg take. Hands up. Ashtav, Chatwari. Put your hands. Nama, inhale. Dasha, exhale. Ekadasha, left leg. Dvadasha. Trayogodasha. Chaturdasha. Breathe. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Panchadasha, jump. Shodasha, again touch. Saptajap. Good, good, good. Samasti. Good. Breathing easy. Now is better.
Yeah.
Breathing is now is better. Sit down.
You could see that he's also emphasizing the breathing, you know. It's important, right? Are we prioritizing postures or breathing? But also, what about going slower, at a slower pace? Anyways. What was I going to say about that? It seems like I might close the meeting for now, and we'll proceed with looking at examples in Iyengar Yoga for a follow-up, because I don't want to make this extremely long video. I think it's long enough. I thank you for joining me for this discussion. I hope you found it illuminating. So sorry we haven't looked at the actual example of how slow are we really talking about in Vinyasa Krama. And I sort of alluded to it as resembling paint drying. And again, for some video I'll make in the future, maybe I'll guide an actual practice. So less of this lecture presentation format, more actually guiding a practice, and you'll see it and experience it through guided instruction as such. But anyways, we'll get to the examples seen in Ramaswamy Sir's teachings, in Deshikachar's teachings, in Shushuba Mohan Kumar. Shushuba Mohan Kumar is the youngest sister of Deshikachar. She's still alive and teaching, and she teaches a Vinyasa Krama approach as well. Anyways, so hopefully this gives you some interesting things to think about, and hopefully it gives you curiosity to tune in to the follow-up. Anyways, feel free to drop a comment in the bottom. Hopefully you don't feel attacked at all for my observations. And more so, I hope you appreciate what I'm trying to share here, the essence of what Pattabhi Jois was saying and what Krishnamacharya himself was saying. And then we'll see what he emphasized to his own children was the nectar of practice. You know, why not consider the children of Krishnamacharyas? I know some people turn away from Deshikachar because they think it's, again, too boring or something, too simple. But he's emphasizing this long breathing. This is what it was conveyed to him from the professor, was the nectar of practice. You know, Ramaswamy Sir could be a helpful bridge in that regard, in that he teaches more of this full scope of asanas, comparable in scope to what people are familiar with in Ashtanga Vinyasa and Iyengar Yoga, just with this long breathing emphasis, this long breathing focus. So it's a helpful bridge, instead of being like, well, why should I do this simple movement with this long breathing? I'm not feeling like I'm getting all the benefits from doing this full series. That's I got to do my full series. That's my practice. Whereas you see something with Ramaswamy that might help bridge the gap. And then that's what happened for me. Once I experienced Ramaswamy's teachings, I gained greater appreciation for Deshikachar teachings, and there's a lot of profundity in just the breathing. So from that, I can take a class with a pupil of Deshikachar's and really appreciate what is being conveyed, because there's this profundity of the breathing that is central. There's no distractions from such fancy or fantastic asanas. All you got is the breath and a simple movement. What more can you ask for? In fact, that's a great way to start, you know, so you don't have the distraction of something that's elaborate and complex and requiring explanation of the technical execution, like in the Iyengar classes, this extensive litany of instructions for the technical execution. But oftentimes helpful because it's very precise language. But what about the breath? Which is what we'll get to next time. We'll look at Iyengar and then the interesting aspect of this, the dynamic possibilities in Iyengar yoga, that often, like I said, Iyengar classes are more static oriented. And I'll show the example again using like such an important historic asana of Paschimottanasana, how it's typically conducted in Paschimottanasana, conducted in an Iyengar class. Like I said, there will be all these instructions of the alignment, the subtle actions, and you got a little taste of that with Richard Freeman, in fact. So of course, the Surya Namaskar, you'll see, it's very interesting to see when it is done in Iyengar yoga. So we'll see that next time. So again, I thank you for tuning in. I'll do a closing chant. I chanted some of the Vedic mantras, and there's a customary chant one does to sort of ask for forgiveness if there were any errors in the recitation of the Vedic mantra, because they're considered sacred. So if you accidentally pronounce it incorrectly, you alter it some way unintentionally. So there's a customary chant one does afterward to ask for forgiveness for any errors. I'll close with that. Om Yadakshatabada Brashta Matra Hinantu Yad Bhavet Tatsarvam Kshamyatam Deva Narayana Namostate Visargabindu Matrani Pada Padaksharani Cha Yunani Chatriktani Kshamasva Purushottama Kshamasva Purushottama Kshamasva Purushottama. Thanks for joining and hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you for the follow-up.